Captain Ethan Cole woke up to the sound of strange voices and the soft hum of alien machinery. His head ached, his vision blurred. The air felt too clean, too sharp, and every breath tasted like metal. When he tried to move, he realized his wrists were bound by silver restraints that glowed faintly against his skin. He blinked a few times, trying to remember what had happened. He had been part of a small recon team sent to scout a Zalari Dominion stronghold on the edge of the Perseus Rim. They were supposed to gather intel and return quietly. But things hadn't gone as planned. The alien patrol ships had found them, and before he could even send a distress signal, their shuttle had been torn apart by plasma fire. The last thing he remembered was the crash, the explosion and the flash of green light before everything went black. Now he was here, in a room that looked like it belonged in a dream. The walls were made of red crystal that seemed to breathe with light, shifting like living glass. Strange vines of silver metal crept along the ceiling, pulsing with a soft rhythm. The floor wasn't solid either. It shimmered faintly beneath his boots as if it were made of energy instead of matter. Everything felt alive, almost watching him. He wasn't alone. Two tall guards stood near the door. They wore armor that seemed to grow from their skin, black and curved like the shells of deep-sea creatures. Their eyes glowed faintly blue and they didn't speak. Ethan sat still, testing the strength of his bindings. No use. He wasn't going anywhere. The door hissed open with a sound like air escaping from a vacuum. A figure stepped in and the guards immediately knelt. Ethan didn't. He kept his head up, his gaze steady, though he could feel something cold settle in his stomach. The woman, or what looked almost like a woman, moved with a kind of calm power that made the whole room feel smaller. She was tall, taller than Ethan by a head, her skin a pale shade of silver with faint glowing patterns that flowed like ink under her surface. Her eyes were golden, not human gold, but molten, alive. Her hair shimmered faintly with light, as if threads of metal had been woven into it. She wore no crown, but Ethan didn't need one to know who she was, the alien queen. She stopped a few feet from him and looked down, her expression unreadable. When she spoke, her voice was smooth and layered, like several tones speaking in harmony. "So," she said slowly, studying him, "the last survivor of the human recon team. You fought well for your kind." Ethan didn't answer. He watched her, trying to hide his curiosity behind his calm face. He had heard about the Zalari Queen, Lyra, ruler of 100 worlds, destroyer of the lunar fleet, the mind behind the fall of Titan Base. Soldiers told stories about her around the fire, calling her a goddess of war, a monster wrapped in beauty. He hadn't believed half of it. But now, seeing her standing there, he wondered if the stories hadn't gone far enough. "You understand me?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. "Yeah," Ethan said finally, his voice rough. "You made sure of that, I guess." A small smile touched her lips. "Your species is adaptable. You pick up languages faster than most. An impressive trait for such a young civilization." He didn't reply. He didn't want to give her the satisfaction of knowing he was listening. She walked around him slowly, examining him as if he were a puzzle she hadn't solved yet. "You humans are strange creatures," she said. "You burn your own worlds, yet you fight for them with a passion I cannot comprehend. Even when defeat is certain, you refuse to surrender. Why?" Ethan let out a faint laugh, dry and humorless. "You wouldn't understand." Lyra stopped behind him. "Try me." He turned his head slightly. "Because we don't know how to quit. Maybe we're too dumb, or maybe we just care too much. Either way, we don't bow." She walked back to stand in front of him again, her expression unreadable. "A dangerous way to live. It brings destruction." "Maybe," he said, "but it's ours." For a moment, her golden eyes seemed to soften, as if his answer had caught her off guard. But then she straightened, her face returning to calm control. "You are a prisoner of the Zalari Dominion now," she said. "You will answer my questions. You will tell me everything about your fleet, your command structures, your weapon systems." Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "Yeah, good luck with that." Her voice dropped, quiet but sharp. "Do not mistake my patience for mercy." "I didn't," he said. Lyra studied him for a long time. Then she waved her hand. The restraints flickered and released with a small click. The guards tensed, but she raised one finger and they remained still. Ethan rubbed his wrists. "That's new. You usually untie prisoners before or after interrogation. I want to see what you do when you are free," she said. "Will you attack me?" He looked around. There were 2 armed guards, and the walls themselves seemed alive. He laughed again softly. Not stupid enough to try. Good, she said. Then sit. A chair formed out of the floor, growing like liquid metal solidifying in front of him. He sat slowly, keeping his eyes on her. For the next hour, she questioned him. About Earth, about the colonies, about humanity's strange will to fight. He didn't give her much. He spoke instead of music, of sunlight, of rain. He told her about the smell of old books and how humans laughed even when things were falling apart. Every time she tried to pull him toward military answers, he redirected. Somehow his small, simple words seemed to interest her more than strategies ever could. When the session ended, she looked thoughtful. You speak as though your world were something sacred, she said quietly. Maybe it is, he replied. Her eyes met his for a long time. Then she turned and walked toward the door. You will remain here until I call for you again. The guards followed her out and the door sealed shut behind them. Ethan sat alone in the strange red light. He tried to rest, but sleep wouldn't come. He didn't know what she wanted with him. But something about the way she had looked at him, it wasn't just curiosity. It was something else, something uncertain. He thought of his crew, his friends lost in the crash, and felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He should have died with them. Instead, he was here, trapped in a palace made of light being studied like some kind of exotic animal. Hours passed. The walls dimmed and the air grew cooler. He closed his eyes and leaned back, trying to think of Earth, the ocean, the sound of wind through trees, anything but this place. But when the door hissed open again, he knew sleep was over. The Queen stepped in once more, this time without her guards. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dark golden light cutting through the shadows. She stopped a few steps away from him. You are awake, she said softly. Hard to sleep with all the glowing walls, he replied. She almost smiled. You are bold for a captive. Maybe I just don't scare easy. She walked closer. You should. Ethan met her gaze without flinching. I've seen worse. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy, almost alive. Then Lirathe said, Your kind fascinates me. You build weapons capable of destroying planets, yet your hearts cling to fragile things. To home, to memories, to love. Yeah, he said quietly. That's what makes us human. Her eyes lingered on him, and for a moment she looked less like a queen and more like someone lost in thought. Perhaps, she murmured. Or perhaps it is what makes you dangerous. She turned and left, the door closing behind her once again. Ethan let out a slow breath. He didn't know what game she was playing, but he could feel it. The tension in the air, the curiosity behind her questions. She wasn't just trying to break him. She was trying to understand him. And that, he realized, might be more dangerous than any weapon she could use. He lay back on the cold floor, staring at the glowing ceiling. Somewhere out there, the war was still going on. Ships burning, soldiers fighting, humans refusing to bow. He smiled faintly to himself. If this was how it ended, if humanity's story came down to one stubborn man and one curious queen, then maybe, just maybe, that was enough. And as the red light dimmed around him, Ethan closed his eyes and whispered almost to himself, You'll never understand us, will you? But deep down he suspected she was already trying. Ethan did not know how long he had been in that strange, glowing cell. There was no day or night in the alien palace, only a slow change of colors in the crystal walls. Sometimes they glowed red like fire, sometimes pale blue like moonlight. Time felt broken. He ate when the guards brought food, but the food itself was strange. Soft silver fruit that melted in his mouth and left a cool taste behind. He tried to count the days, but he lost track. Every now and then the Queen came. She never shouted or threatened him. She only asked questions. Sometimes she sat across from him, silent, watching. Her golden eyes were calm, but he could feel her mind working behind them, studying him the way a scientist studied something new. She asked him about Earth again. She wanted to know how humans could build cities that touched the clouds yet destroy them with war. She wanted to understand how they could fight for freedom, but still make chains for others. Ethan answered as simply as he could. Because we're not perfect, he said once. We try and we fail. Then we try again. That answer seemed to bother her. She frowned and said, Failure is weakness. My people do not fail. We plan until success is certain. He smiled faintly. Then you never really live. Lyrathe tilted her head, confused. To fail is to live? Yeah, he said. If you don't risk anything, you don't grow, you just exist. She was quiet for a long time after that. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer. Humans are strange. Thanks, he said. I'll take that as a compliment. That made her laugh, a small, quiet sound that surprised both of them. The next day she called for him again, but this time it was not in the red room. 2 guards came and told him to follow. They led him through long, glowing halls, each wall filled with symbols that pulsed gently like living veins. The air smelled like flowers and metal. They passed other Zilari, tall, elegant beings who looked at him with cold eyes like he was a dangerous animal. They entered a large chamber filled with floating crystal panels. Strange voices whispered from them, the echoes of many beings speaking at once. Lyrathe stood in the center, her long robe flowing like liquid light. She turned when he entered. This is the Hall of Voices, she said. These are the memories of my ancestors. Every ruler before me is recorded here. Ethan looked around, uneasy. The air felt heavy. You talk to ghosts? They are not ghosts, she said. They are wisdom. They speak when I ask, they answer when I need guidance. Sounds lonely, he said quietly. She didn't answer that. Instead, she gestured to one of the glowing panels. The voices changed, forming words in his language. Human, they said in a deep, echoing tone. Your kind spreads like fire. You destroy, you consume, you rise from ashes. Why? Ethan looked up at the glowing shapes. Because that's what we do. We survive. Doesn't matter where you put us, we find a way. The voices murmured to each other like a sea of whispers. Lyrathe watched him. You speak of survival as though it were sacred, isn't it? He asked. You fight wars too. You build armies, conquer planets. Why do you fight? To maintain order, she said. To keep the galaxy from chaos. Ethan nodded slowly. And we fight to be free. Guess that's the difference. Her expression changed, a flicker of doubt passing over her perfect calm. Freedom, she repeated. You value it above life itself? Sometimes, he said. Sometimes it's the only thing that makes life worth it. The room went quiet. The glowing panels dimmed and the voices faded. Lyrathe turned to face him fully. Your people have lost many worlds. Your fleets are shattered. You cannot win this war. Maybe not, Ethan said, but that doesn't mean we stop fighting. Even when all hope is gone? He smiled faintly. Hope doesn't die easy. Not for us. Lyrathe's golden eyes held his for a long time. Something passed between them, something she couldn't name. Then she nodded to the guards. Take him back. As he walked away, he could feel her gaze on him, thoughtful and troubled. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his room, staring at the walls, thinking about her words. Somewhere in this palace, an alien queen was asking herself questions she had never asked before. And somehow that gave him a strange sense of pride. The next time she came, she did not come to question him. She brought him to a garden instead. It was inside a dome of glass with glowing blue plants that bent toward the air like they were alive. Streams of silver water ran through the paths. It was the first time Ethan had seen anything close to nature since his capture. She walked beside him, silent at first. He could feel the air move around her like a soft current. Finally, she said, I have ruled for 130 cycles. I have fought 100 battles. And yet you speak to me as if I were ordinary. You are, he said simply. Everyone is once you take the crown off. She glanced at him sharply. You are not afraid of me? Ethan shrugged. Should I be? I have destroyed worlds, she said. Yeah, he said quietly. And I've seen them burn. Doesn't change the fact that you're still just a person. That seemed to confuse her more than anything. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. Not her council, not her soldiers, not even her enemies. They stopped near the stream. She watched the water for a while. You humans fight for something you cannot even define, she said. Freedom, honor, love. Empty words, maybe, he said. But they mean something to us. That's the difference, one meaning, she said softly. You live for meaning. We live for order. He looked at her. And how's that working out for you? She didn't answer. The silence between them was heavy again, but not cold this time. It felt like both were searching for something in each other's words. She turned to leave, then stopped. Your world. This earth. Tell me what it looks like. Ethan smiled faintly. It's messy, loud, beautiful. The sky changes color when the sun sets. The ocean smells like salt and life. There's music everywhere, even in the streets. People laugh, fight, fall in love, make mistakes. It's home. Her golden eyes softened. You miss it. Every day. She nodded slowly, as if trying to imagine it. Maybe one day when this war is done, I will see it. He looked at her with a faint smirk. You'd like it. It would probably drive you crazy, though. For the first time, she smiled without hiding it. It was small, uncertain, but real. When they returned to his cell, she stopped at the door. You confuse me, Ethan Cole, she said. Good, he said. Means I'm doing something right. That night, she sat alone in her throne room. The palace was silent except for the whisper of the ancestral voices. She looked up at the glowing crystals and asked softly, What am I missing? The voices did not answer. They never did when her questions came from her heart instead of her mind. She thought about the human's words. His laughter, his stubborn calm, his refusal to kneel. He was not like any of the beings she had conquered before. His defiance wasn't pride. It was something deeper, something warm and alive. The next day, she did something she had never done before. She canceled her council meeting. When her advisors asked why, she only said, Because I need to think. Meanwhile, Ethan paced his cell, wondering if he had said too much. Maybe he had pushed her too far. Maybe she was done with her little experiment. But deep down, he didn't believe that. Something was changing. He didn't know what would happen next, but he could feel it, like the quiet before a storm. The air in the palace seemed different now, as if even the walls were listening. He sat on the edge of his bed and thought about her again. The alien queen who ruled the stars but didn't know what it meant to be human. He wondered if, somehow he could teach her, and somewhere in her chambers, Queen Lyrathai stared at her reflection in the dark glass and whispered to herself, Why can I not stop thinking about him? For the first time in her long life, the ruler of the Zalari Dominion could not find an answer.